For the entirety of October 2022, I traveled around Europe with my family using the Viltrox 50mm f1.8 lens. In that span of time, I used it to take lots of photos and videos. I took it with me through 11 cities and 7 countries for over 40 days. It didn't take long before I was reminded why I really like shooting with this focal length. So I thought I'd make this video to share with you my thoughts and experiences with this lens. Also, be sure to stay towards the end because I'll be giving you a special discount code for this lens so you can get an even better deal on it. The Viltrox 50mm is one of the newer lenses from Viltrox that was announced much later than the 85 f1.8 Mark I and the 24mm f1.8. And I'd say as a long-time Viltrox user, the design is exactly what you'd expect to get from a Viltrox lens at this point. All metal build with an included plastic lens hood out of the box, a big focusing ring that turns very smoothly and occupies almost half of the lens body, and a declicked aperture ring that you can lock into the auto setting. It's a standard size lens measuring roughly around 80 to 82mm without the hood and about 120mm with it. And it weighs only 349 grams. It's not exactly pancake lens compact, but it's not a giant lens either. It's the kind of lens you wouldn't mind having on the camera at all times, even when you're traveling or just walking around shooting street. The glass front element is fairly small, unlike the 85mm, and it features the same 55mm thread found on the 24mm. Like all Viltrox lenses, firmware update is done through a USB port at the back of the lens, and this time, unlike the 85 and like the 24mm, the 50 is using a USB-C port. And yes, unfortunately, we still don't get weather sealing, but it is kind of to be expected at this price point in all honesty. More about the Viltrox 50mm in a second. I just want to say, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Justin and I make videos about photography, filmmaking, travel, and gear. So if you're into those kinds of things, then please do consider subscribing because it's completely free and it's the easiest way to support this channel. Full disclosure, the amazing people at Viltrox did send me this lens to test out and review, but they're not paying me to say anything. So all the things I will be saying will be my opinion only. However, I also just wanted to say that having been sent a lens like this is one of the coolest things ever to have happened to me as a creator. It's an amazing feeling and I'm not gonna lie. With that out of the way, let's talk about the 5 things you should know about the Viltrox 50mm lens. I was using this lens about 70 to 80% of the time during our trip on my Sony a7 III as well as my a6400. And while those cameras do have great AF speeds, they're not exactly at the forefront of AF technology nowadays. But still, I didn't have any major issues with the lens. For the kind of stuff I shoot, making travel films, documenting our family trips, and street photography sessions, I'm always using the autofocus of my cameras. So it's very important to me that the lens and the camera I'm using has very good AF speed. I'd say 8 times out of 10, I was able to get what I wanted out of this lens. I do feel like I have had less problems with the 24 and the 85 with focusing, though I'm not 100% sure yet. I'll definitely need to put that theory to the test too. Those few times that I did have some focusing issues with this lens was when we were in extremely low light situations, which I think a lot of cameras or lenses for that matter would have had trouble focusing in anyway. I also did a quick AF speed test to give you an idea of just how well this lens performs.
All right. All right. One more. I don't know if that was caught. Let's do one more. All right. Wow. Wow. right? Yes. I would say that's pretty fast. Right.
This lens supports IAF in photo mode while it uses face detection in video, and both work nicely. Okay, time to talk about image quality. This lens delivers, both for photos and videos. The images I was able to make with this lens were just some of my favorite photos from our entire trip. I started my photography journey with a 50mm lens back in 2016, and shooting with this lens made me realize just how much I really loved shooting at this focal length. It's really special and there's just something about it. I find the bokeh on this lens to be beautiful and photos to be sharp, especially for social media purposes. Now, I'm not one to pixel peep because most of my work is online, which means it's viewed on smaller screens. But I love looking at them on my computer, my iPad, my phone, and yes, even on platforms like Instagram, Facebook, that puts the images through their compression algorithms. It doesn't have image stabilization though, so using it with the A6400, which doesn't have in-body stabilization, especially for video, can result in some shaky footage, especially if you don't have steady hands. Otherwise, pairing it with something like my Sony a7 III, which does have IBIS, I didn't have any problems at all. One of the things I'm really particular when it comes to lenses is AF noise. This is what it sounds like through the onboard microphone of my Sony a7 III. This is what it sounds like with a shotgun microphone on top of the camera. Time for some real world tests. Right now I'm shooting with the Viltrox 50mm f1.8 and I'm about 1.7 to 1.8 meters away from the camera. So this is the AF noise test for the Viltrox 50mm f1.8 for talking head shots like this. Again, as I mentioned, I am a little bit further away from the camera, which is the distance you would normally use this lens for a type of shot like this. Can you hear the AF noise? Can you hear the noise from this distance? What do you think? So I have the Viltrox 50mm f1.8 mounted on my Sony a7 III right now. I do have a shotgun microphone mounted on the camera. Alright, mic test 1 2 3, mic test 1 2 3, mic test 1 2 3. We are again testing the AF noise, AF motor noise of the Viltrox 50mm f1.8 FE lens at this rate. If you are talking over, if you are recording and making a video like this and the focus motor kicks in, is it gonna be heard in the recording? Mic test 1 2 3, mic test 1 2 3. I am speaking, testing the AF noise of the Viltrox 50mm f1.8 FE lens. As you can see, if you're just using the onboard microphone with the internal gain raised to get audible audio, the camera will pick up the noise, resulting in unusable footage. However, it almost vanishes once you use a shotgun microphone. You can still hear it, but it's barely noticeable. You saw in the talking head test, you won't even hear it when you're talking as usual. That being said, if you're using the 50mm for talking heads and at that distance, I wouldn't even recommend using a shotgun mic on top of the camera anyway, as the audio quality really won't be the best. At that point, an overhead setup or a lav mic will give you much better audio, and in those situations, you shouldn't be worried at all. Long story short, I find the AF noise to not be a concern for actual applications. At this point of the video, I want to talk about the one thing I don't like about this lens. And that is none other than the minimum focusing distance. This lens is rated at 0.55mm. Now for street photography, travel, portraiture, that's not really a problem. Like I said, I've had it on my camera for about 70 to 80% of the time for more than 40 days while traveling, which meant I was using it for a variety of different things. And for those instances, the Viltrox 50 shines. The one area I do have trouble with it is when it comes to product photos, especially for gear reviews I make on this channel. There's a number of times I'm in here taking photos and I realize just how far back I need to be to take a shot. And that can be challenging, especially if you have very limited space. 50mm is also a great focal length for product shots, so it's really a pity I can't get just a little bit closer. For reference, here's a list of some 50mm lenses you can use and some APS-C equivalents with their rated minimum focusing distances. This lens might just be the 50mm lens with the farthest minimum focusing distance at the time of making this video. It's the one issue I kept bumping into while using it. It's not really a deal breaker, but it's something you should know when getting this lens. Finally, let's talk about the best thing about the Viltrox 50. Viltrox is a brand that's known for producing some of the best budget lens options for mirrorless cameras. And at the time of making this video, you can get this lens through the Viltrox store for just about $379, making it one of the cheapest full-frame lenses you can get, next to only the Sony 50mm F1.8 FE lens, which costs around $180 to $150. For the additional cost, you are getting a much better build quality lens with arguably better autofocus and great image quality. And for a budget brand like Viltrox, that's really a hard bargain to beat. And what's going to make it even harder to beat is if you go through the link down in the description box below and you use my special discount code JUSTIN10 to get an additional 10% off of your purchase. This is of course an affiliate link, which means I will make a little bit of commission money to no additional cost to you whatsoever if you do decide to purchase through that link. It does, however, help me in continuing making videos like this for you guys. So here's my final thoughts. I think the Viltrox 50mm lens is a really great lens. Yes, it doesn't have weather sealing, minimum focusing distance is a bit too far, it doesn't have image stabilization, but those are easily overshadowed by the positive that this lens brings. And when you partner that with just how much you only need to spend on this lens, it almost makes it a no-brainer decision. I would definitely consider this lens if you're looking for a great 50mm option for your Sony and Nikon cameras. It's great to use for street, travel photography, and portraiture. I would also use it for talking headshots. Like I said, AF noise really isn't a concern unless you're not using some form of external microphone. It is a little tricky for group shots though, because it is a mid-telephoto lens, but it's the one lens I'd bring with me if I had to pick just one. That's gonna do it for this video. Again, if you're interested to get this lens, be sure to check out the link in the description box below. And don't forget to use the special discount code to get yourself an additional 10% off of your purchase. My name is Justin, and if you like this video, then do check out these other videos that I have on my channel. Don't forget to hit that like button, consider subscribing if you haven't already. As always, thanks for watching.